Good morning, dear students. We'll be continuing with the real numbers lesson. In the last lecture, we started with the real numbers, in which we did a quick revision of 8th standard, that is terminating, non-terminating, recurring numbers. And also we solved exercise number 2.1, and I gave you some homework which was a revision of 8th standard, that is drawing root 2 and root 3 and root 5 on the number line. So today we'll start with the next section of real numbers, in which we'll be proving that root 2 is an irrational number. We very well know that root 2 is an irrational number, but till now we have not done a proof for it. So in this lesson we'll be learning a proof which shows that root 2 is an irrational number. Now, to prove root 2 is an irrational number, we'll be using a contradictory method, a method in which you assume the opposite of the proof that statement. When you assume the opposite, suppose for example if they are saying prove it is irrational, we will assume that it is rational. And we will continue with the proof, and when we continue with the proof, we should get a wrong sentence or a wrong statement. And the moment we get a wrong statement, we will say that our assumption is wrong. That means it is not to be a rational number, it should be an irrational number. Such method is called contradictory method. In geometry, you have learned kinds of proofs in which you have to start from prove that statement, keep solving and get the proof that step. That is called a straight proof. This is called a contradictory proof, in which we assume the opposite. In contradictory proof, we assume the opposite. If they tell us to prove that, say for example, root 2 is on the left, the opposite will be assume that root 2 is on the right. We need to assume the opposite of the proof that statement. So let's start with the proof. The proof says that root 2 is irrational. This we are supposed to prove. We assume that root 2 is rational. Since root 2 is a rational, according to the definition, root 2 can be written in the fraction form, that is p upon q, where p and q will belong to integers and q should not be 0. The denominator should not be 0. And p and q are coprime. This fraction we are writing in a reduced form. So p and q are coprime. We know very well what is the meaning of the word coprime. Coprime means p and q will not go in the same table, and also they will not be going in each other's table. That is the meaning of the word p and q are coprime. Now, after this step, we square both the sides, LHS and RHS. Squaring both the side, you get root 2 square equal to p upon q the whole square. This will be 2 is equal to p square upon q square. Cross multiply, q square goes up, it will become 2q square equal to p square. Call this step number 1. Now, we know very well that whenever a number is divisible by, for example, say 2. If I say 8 is divisible by 2, that means 8 goes in the table of 2. So you can write 2 4s are 8. That means 2 into 4 equal to 8. So here if you assume the same step, let's take one more example. 27 is divisible by 3. That means 27 goes in the table of 3. That means 3 into 9 is 27. 3 9s are 27. So same step if you'll assume here, 2 into q square is p square. That means p square goes in the table of 2. So we write here p square is divisible by 2. And we know very well that all the numbers which goes in the table of 2 are even numbers. That means p square will be a even number. And if p square is even number, that means p will also be a even number. It is quite obvious, because a square of an even number is always even. So if p square is even, that means p should also be a even number. That means p is also divisible by 2. Mark this step as star. Now since p is going in the table of 2, that means p should be 2 multiplied by some number. When I say 10 is divisible by 2, that means 10 is equal to 2 into 5. So if I say p is divisible by 2, that means p is equal to 2 into some number. We are not concerned with what this number is. Let it be as c. Now again, squaring both sides, this will become p square, this will become 2 2s are 4 and c square. So we have p square is equal to 4c square. Now from this step and step number 1 over here, if you see, here also I have p square, here also I have p square. So if p square is 2q square and here p square is 4c square, that means 4c square and 2q square, they both should be same. So from step number 1 we have 2q square equal to 4c square. Now dividing by 2 on both the sides. When we divide by 2 over here, 2 and 2 cancel. So we have 1 left here. When we divide by 2 over here, 2 1s are 2 2s are 4. So we have 2 left here. So it is q square equal to 2c square. That means again q square is going in the table of 2. Because q square you are writing as 2 into some number. So q square is divisible by 2. Again the same logic. If q square is even, that means q also should be even. So if q square is divisible by 2, that means q should be also divisible by 2. So here we have q divisible by 2. So let's go back to this step where you have written p divisible by 2. And let's come back to this step where you have written q is divisible by 2. That means p and q both are going in the table of 2. If both are going in the table of 2, when we wrote the definition, there we have written that p and q are co-prime. They are not supposed to go in the same table, or they are not supposed to go in each other's table. P is not supposed to go in the q ka table, or q is not supposed to go in the p table. Or p and q together are not supposed to go in the same number. But here we are getting that p and q both are divisible by 2. That means both are going in the table of 2. That means what we have assumed after solving, we get the opposite. That is, both are going in the table of 2. That means we got a wrong step over here. And the wrong step itself tells us that our assumption is wrong. This sign says contradiction, or you can just think that an accident has happened over here, or something wrong has happened over here, something very bad has happened over here. This sign says it's a contradiction, that what you assumed is completely wrong. So p and q are not co-prime. We got that they are not co-prime, but according to the definition it says that it should be co-prime according to the rational definition. Okay, so that means our assumption is wrong. What we have assumed that root 2 is rational. It is completely wrong. It is wrong. That means root 2 should not be rational. So rational opposite is what? Irrational. That means root 2 should be what? It should be an irrational number. Therefore our proof is over. We get that root 2 is an irrational number. Now all the sums of irrational numbers we are going to do in the same way, that is contradictory method. We have one sum in exercise 2.2. We are going to solve it on the same lines. How we did for root 2, in the same way we are going to solve. So exercise 2.2, the first sum says that show that 4 root 2 is an irrational number. Again we'll start with the wrong step. Assume that 4 root 2 is a rational number. If it is a rational number, that means according to the definition, 4 root 2 will be p upon q, where p and q belongs to integers. Q is not equal to 0 and p and q are co-prime. Further solving, divide by 4 on both the side. This full thing divide by 4, p upon q divide by 4. So 4 and 4 cancels. Here you have root 2 and this side you have p upon 4q. So if you'll observe, root 2 is irrational number. That means LHS is irrational. Whereas RHS, that is p upon 4q, this is an integer, so this division will also be a rational number. So you have one side irrational, other side irrational. Now how is it possible? One rational number, how can it be equal to another irrational number? It is not true. Rational and irrationals are completely separate family. It is a completely disjoint set, separate family. So there cannot be any number which is in both the families, that is in rational also and irrational also. So we cannot have them equal. We cannot say that a rational can be equal to irrational. So this here itself is a contradiction. So you make a sign like this over here, contradiction sign, and you can write over here our assumption is wrong. That means what we have started with is wrong. This we started with, right? It is wrong. So our assumption is wrong. So if our assumption is wrong, if it is not rational, then what it should be? It should be irrational then. That means 4 root 2 is an irrational number. This is how we are going to do the proofs for irrational numbers. Okay. So we have one more sum over here. Again the same kind of sum, which I have left for homework for you all with some help from my side. Okay. So let's see question number 2. Question number 2 says that prove that 3 plus root 5 is an irrational number. We have to prove that 3 plus root 5 is an irrational number. Now again we start with the contradiction method. Assume that 3 plus root 5 is a rational number. The moment you say rational number, you apply definition over here. 3 plus root 5 is equal to P upon Q, where P and Q belongs to integers, Q not equal to 0, and P and Q are co-prime. So we have again whatever terms are there, integers we shift on the other side. Root 5 remains here. This 3 goes on the other side. Here 3 is added. So here the 3 will be minus P upon Q minus 3. So root 5 will be cross multiply over here. P here minus Q multiplies with 3. You will have 3Q upon Q ones are Q. So if you will observe this step, you will see this side is completely irrational and this side is rational. So the LHS is a irrational, RHS is rational. And how can a rational and irrational be equal? They cannot be equal. That means we got a contradiction. And if we get a contradiction, we make this sign and then we write our assumption is wrong. That means our assumption is wrong. And what we assumed that 3 plus root 5 is rational. So if it is not rational, what it should be then? It should be an irrational number. So I hope you understood these sums and hope you can fill these blanks over here. Okay. Now we'll go to the next sum, question number 3. Question number 3. Question number 3 is continuation of the homework that I gave you to do. That is to draw root 2, root 3, root 5 on the number line. Question number 3 says draw root 5 and root 10 on the number line. I'll help you with root 10 and I hope that you all do root 2, root 3, root 5 with the help of 8th standard books or with the help of the sum which I am solving over here. Okay. So let's start with root 10. Now since you need root 10 on the hypotenuse. That means you need to take one side as 3 and one side as 1 because 3 square will be 9. 1 square will be 1. 9 plus 1 total will give you 10. So the same working you have to do for root 5 also and for root 3 and root 2 also. Okay. So here we need a right angle triangle whose one side is 3 and whose other side is 1, which will give you an hypotenuse of root 10. You will get an hypotenuse of root 10. Okay. So let's start with constructing root 10 on the number line. You take a scale. Draw number line with the help of scale. Now when we draw number line, if we take 1 centimeter as 1 unit, the diagram will be quite smaller. So I prefer taking 2 centimeters as 1 unit to make the diagram magnified enough for our reference. Okay, if you take 1 centimeter as 1 unit, you will get a very small diagram like this. It will be very minute. To make it magnified, let's increase the unit dimension. So I'll take 2 centimeters as 1 unit. So if we take 2 centimeters as 1 unit, we need here 3 units. So 3 units means it should be 6 centimeters on the number line. This is 1 unit, 2 unit, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we have 2 centimeters gap as 1 unit. So here if you will observe, we need 3 centimeter OB, right? Length of OB should be 3 centimeter. So let's start from here. Suppose this is B, 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit. So here you will have O. So this is OB, which is having 3 unit length. Okay, now on O we are going to make a 90 degree. We need a right angle triangle on O. So let's keep the protractor at O. And make 90 degree. So we have 90 degree at O. Now from O till A it is 1 unit. And 1 unit according to us is how much centimeter? 2 centimeter. So we draw 2 centimeter on this line. This is 2 centimeter. Okay. 2 centimeter means 1 unit according to us. Okay, so this will be A, O, B. Join AB and complete the triangle. So this is a right angle triangle in which one side is 3 units, other side is 1 unit. That means hypotenuse should be root 10 units. So let's take this hypotenuse in the protractor, in the rounder. And draw an arc down. Take the measurement AB in the rounder and make an arc down. So where it cuts on the number line, if you'll observe, it cuts here on the number line, right? Call this point as P. So from B till P, length of B till P, it will be root 10 units. Okay, so from B till P it is root 10. So this is how we will draw root 10 on the number line, and on the same basis you will be drawing root 2, root 3 and root 5 on the number line. Now let's go to question number 4. Now question number 4 is very simple for all those who know number lines very well. All those who are very comfortable with number line, for them question number 4 is very easy. Let's see question number 4. Question number 4 says that you have to write any 3 rational numbers between 2 numbers which are given in the sum. There are 2 numbers given. You have to write any 3 rational numbers between them. So let's start. The first sum says 0.3 and minus 0.5. Children, this sum can be solved with the help of midpoint theorem, which you have done in geometry. You can use midpoint theorem over here. Midpoint theorem logic is, if you have 2 points A and B, any 2 points A and B on the number line, and if you want to find the midpoint, Say for example the midpoint is C. So to find C, all you have to do is the coordinate of A and the coordinate of B you should add and divide by 2. So for example, if the coordinate of A is 3 and the coordinate of B is 5, we know number line 3 or 5, 3 and 5, right? The midpoint of 3 and 5 should be what? 4 should be there in the center. Let's see whether this formula helps us or no. So 3 plus 5 upon 2, that is 8 upon 2, that is 4. Yes, we are getting the midpoint as 4. So this is midpoint theorem. If you need midpoint, all you have to do is add the coordinates, divide by 2. Okay, so you can use this formula over here. Otherwise you can have a very straight and easy proof with the help of number line. Okay, let's assume a number line. Suppose this is a number line. We know minus 0.5 is negative. That means minus 0.5 should be on the left side, here, this side. Suppose minus 0.5 is here and 0.3 should be on the right side, somewhere over here. Okay, so 0.3 is on the right, minus 0.5 is on the left. Now all you need to know is the number line properly. You need to know the number line properly. Okay, so if you know the number line properly, you know that this is a negative number, this is a positive number. That means in between somewhere you will be having a 0. So you have one rational number over here. Then in between 0 and 0.3 you might have 0.1. So you have another rational number between them. And in between 0 and minus 0.5 you might have minus 0.1 or minus 0.2 or minus 0.3 and so on. So many numbers are there to be listed. So if you know the number line very well, children, this sum can be solved very easily. Okay, so the three rational numbers which here I can see is 0.1 I can write, 0.2 also I can write, minus 0.1 we can write, minus 0.2, you can pick any three numbers from here. Let's see one more sum. For example, question number 3. Let's see question number 2. Minus 2.3 and minus 2.33. Again, let's visualize the number line over here. Okay, this is a number line. Negative numbers are on the left of 0. So suppose 0 is somewhere over here. That means these two numbers will be on left of 0. So here we'll have minus 2.3, then minus 2.31, minus 2.32, minus 2.33, minus 2.33 here. Okay, so in between we have minus 2.31, somewhere in between minus 2.32, somewhere in between here minus 2.315 and so on. There are so many numbers which you can jot down between minus 2.3 and minus 2.33. Okay, so you can take help like this and write down any three numbers. Let's see one more sum, 5.2 and 5.3. That is very easy, 5.2 and 5.3. See, suppose this is the number line, 5.2 is here, 5.3 is here. Imagine these are the two numbers, 5.2 and 5.3. Now, between 5.2 and 5.3, if you are very good with number line, you should be knowing what comes between 5.2 and 5.3. You have 5.21, you have 5.22, you have 5.23, 5.24, 5.25 and so on. So many numbers are there, infinitely many numbers are there. All you need to do is get hold of any three numbers between them. The next sum is minus 4.5 and minus 4.6. Both are negative. That means they are on the left side of 0. When you move on the left side of 0, the numbers travel this way. The numbers travel in this direction. So if you want minus 4.5, minus 4.5 will come first, and then you'll have minus 4.6 this way. Okay, so now between minus 4.6 and minus 4.5, how the numbers are going to progress? The numbers will progress like this. See, minus 4.51, minus 4.52, minus 4.53, minus 4.54. Can you tell me a number between minus 4.53 and minus 4.54? It will be minus 4.531. 4.532, 4.533, and so on. So this is how the number line will help you to solve question number 4. Okay, now question number 4 I have solved using midpoint theorem also, children. Okay, so I'll be flashing the images of midpoint theorem. I'll just send the images or the pics of the sum, the same sum solved with the midpoint theorem. Now you go through both the methods, and which method feels easier for you, you go ahead with that method. Okay, now in the next lecture, that is tomorrow's lecture, we'll start with surds. For now your homework will be to revise this part, that is 2.2, properly, and to write down all the sums of 2.2 in your notebook. Okay, see you tomorrow, children. God bless.